All right, so thought we could talk a little bit about Taiwan, because at the weekend or a few days ago now, Pete Hegseth made some comments about Taiwan, basically saying, speaking to a bunch of people in the sort of American military establishment, saying, let's not forget about Taiwan. Let's not take out. Remember, the Chinese do still want Taiwan. I think the Chinese line, or I saw a senior Chinese official saying, we want reunification. That's how they talk about it. The Chinese talk about it as reunification. They don't recognise Taiwan. In fact, actually, most of the world doesn't formally, legally recognise Taiwan.
The official position of the United States and Britain is that Taiwan is part of China.
Since the 70s, I think, since Nixon.
That's the official position.
But we'll still use the Pacific Fleet to defend them if we need it. So it's a funny sort of...
I don't get how that works at all. We can see that Taiwan is part of China, but also we might go to war to stop you getting them.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it is a bit of an odd situation. Well, it's part of sort of the post-World War II sort of US military paradigm. We'll keep massive bases in Germany forever. Who knows? We'll defend South Korea against North Korea forever. We'll defend the right of Taiwan to be independent from the CCP forever. I don't know. Yeah, it's still all part of that, right?
It feels like they're walking it back, like the CHIPS Act and a whole bunch of things. Like they need Taiwan because of the chips. But,
well, I'll get.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right.
Well, no, we can say that now. Why not say that now? So, in most people might know that in Taiwan, they build sort of 80-90% of all the world's
semiconductors,
microchips and semiconductors. Yeah. They're the best at it. There's not only have they cornered the market, but they are also technically the best at it, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I find is a tiny bit weird. It's like something from an Isaac Asimov novel or something. There's this planet,
yes,
and there's this one country that's got one company in it that all the world fight over this one company. But there you go. Sorry, you was going to say something.
So here's the weird part: the machines that make the chips don't come from Taiwan, and the designs of the chips do not come from Taiwan either. But the actual fabrication of the chips is pretty much almost monopolized, 80 to 90% by Taiwan, especially for the highest high-end chips. So the smallest,
small
3 nanometer and 5 nanometer chips. So they make the best ones, but they don't design them, nor do they build the machines for them. And the machines are built by a Dutch company, the lithography machines, whereas the the designs are largely American. The Koreans are also a player, and now the Chinese are breaking into this market and are sort of developing their fully integrated capability to build everything from the machines down to the most advanced chips.
It does make sense. There's a company, TSMC it's called, and it just makes me think, when you hear about this, why haven't all the biggest players in the world, the US, China, even advanced places like France and Britain, why don't, especially somewhere like America, you've got not endless, you've got tons and tons of money and research and development, and why would you rely on one Taiwanese company? But there you go, that's where we are at the moment.
Massive capex, I'd imagine.
In 2025, maybe.
Massive
capex,
it is.
But
when Biden tried to get them to move the chips, the chips manufacturing, he filled the bill in question with so much DEI BS that TSMC couldn't actually implement it, and it's a big hot mess.
So that's one element, perhaps a very crucial element, is the TSMC and the microchip thing. But let's see what Hegseth actually said.
You got it muted.
Credibly preparing to potentially be clear to all that Beijing is credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alter the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. We know, it's public, that Xi has ordered his military to be capable of invading Taiwan by 2027. The PLA is building the military needed to do it, training for it every day, and rehearsing for the real deal.
He goes on in that vein, but you get the idea.
Yep.
So just to say, it's sort of been in the news a little bit, like everyone from the BBC on down. Imminent. It's an imminent threat. Imminent. I mean, I've been hearing this my whole life, more or less. But he said not till 2027, but it could be imminent. I mean, Al Jazeera saying there, China saying don't play with fire. Bit of saber rattling there. Yeah, the Telegraph go with something. But it's all over the news. Of course, the Guardian go with it's cowardice, Trump's cowardice. But still.
So this is something that I always find fascinating. The way in which the left and the far left have become the biggest warmongers. The idea that today saying, look, the Chinese are a great power, they're going to have their sphere of influence, let's figure out a way to work around this. The Russians are a great power, let's figure out how to work around their sphere of influence. That has become the right-wing position. And even the far-right Putin shill position, as people often get called. Whereas the leftist position is the existing liberal order, which only happened through a bizarre series of historic accidents, must be maintained even if we have to risk nuclear war.
So they're quite pro-nuclear war these days.
Crazy, isn't it?
These days they're pro anything that destroys humanity, really. So there's been this shift in the discourse, and it's really incredible.
It is. It honestly is, isn't it? Well, I mean, so I just a couple of minutes, just talk about the people that might not know. Back in the 20s and 30s, the nationalists and the communists in China were fighting each other.
Yes.
World War II comes along. They decide eventually they have to make common cause and fight the Japanese. They do boot them out. I mean, the Japanese got nuked in 45. But then they go straight back to war with each other. And it's in 1949 when Mao wins.
Yes.
And that's when Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the nationalists, retreats to Formosa, the island of, or Taiwan, what we call Taiwan today. Okay.
Yes.
And that's sort of, it's been that way
What's
ever
the
since.
origin of it? I didn't know the origin of it.
Yeah.
That? Okay.
Yeah.
It's the dissident Chinese, what the more capitalist side is it?
Well, yeah, Taiwan today is a democracy, a republic. Well, Chinese pretend they're a republic, but of course they're a one-party system. But in Taiwan, it actually is a sort of a republic. It's got a democracy and stuff, and their open economy is booming, relatively booming.
They're not Han Chinese as well, are they?
Well, I don't know about the ethnicity.
They are.
side.
They are very much Han Chinese as well.
Okay.
I like to think of them as the real Chinese. They're Chinese. They're not Taiwanese. They're Chinese.
Yes.
The other ones on the mainland, they're commies. They're just the communists.
Their official name is Republic of China.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The name of Taiwan is the Republic of China, whereas China is what what refers to itself as the People's Republic of China. And whenever "peoples" is inserted, then you know that it's a communist regime. In the same way that North Korea is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, whereas South Korea is just the Republic of Korea.
I'm a Taiwan stan. I stand for Taiwan. So, okay. And ever since then, like the Americans back in the 40s, 50s, 60s had big garrison on Taiwan. They pulled out in the 70s, I believe. But still, they say, it's a cornerstone of American foreign policy that they will protect Taiwan with the Pacific Fleet if needs be.
It's not the official position. It's the implied position.
Right.
It's the implied position. So
well-
Biden got into trouble for saying it.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
Biden got into trouble for saying it. The big issue is for the Japanese.
Well, we'll get into that in a sec if that's all right. I'll just say, but to build on that point, I mean, to this day, I mean, even at the moment, in the last day or two, they sent like the USS Nimitz, one of their big aircraft carriers, through the. I'm not sure if it's actually through the Straits of Taiwan, but they've sent it to that area.
Right.
A very, very clear message that we will use our navy if needs be. I think the HMS Prince of Wales also is in that part of the world as well. So I hope it doesn't happen. And if I actually had to put money on it, I don't think the Chinese will invade with boots on the ground Taiwan anytime soon. They might do it at some point. I mean, their line is, we want unification whether peaceful or non-peaceful. That's sort of their line. But they're quite cautious in terms of having foreign adventures, aren't they, the CCP, in recent decades. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I feel, but let's just talk about what if it did happen and the global repercussions of it all. Because it wouldn't just be Chinese troops versus Taiwanese troops. It would very, very quickly spiral, wouldn't it? I mean, there's sort of no doubt about that. So just on the grandest level, first and foremost, talk about the South China Sea. And so most people that have paid any attention to the news over the last few years, we know that China is fairly aggressive or bellicose with extending its its sphere of dominance in the South China Sea. So there's the Spratly Islands and the Paracel Islands. You can see them on a map. Look, there's the Paracel. That's Taiwan right there.
Who controls the Paracel Islands?
Increasingly, China has built up a bunch of military bases there.
Well, yeah.
But there are competing claims between the different countries.
They're coral islands. They're coral reefs.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not like big islands.
So you'd have to make artificial islands to make them viable then.
Spratly Islands
Which
again.
they're making.
Not a million miles away. Because what you want is just enough to put an airstrip on it.
Yeah.
Then it's important at that point. So go on.
And if you shut down the South China Sea, I mean, that has much bigger implications, because not only are you losing the semiconductors, you're losing the electrical supplies coming out of South Korea, which is vast, but also the implications for China is serious, because they've got a hell of a lot of manufacturing in the South China. And if the South China Sea gets shut down and all those exports get shut down, you've got millions of Chinese flooding back into the cities that the Chinese are then going to have to deal with. So shutting down the South China Sea is no small thing.
So there's a couple of things here. From China's perspective, what they're doing is defending the main maritime route that they depend on for the supply of food and fuel. Right. They get their oil from the Middle East. They get food from pretty much all over the world. One of the key routes is the South China Sea. I think it was either Vietnam or the Philippines that started the game of claiming islands, and I think they began it in the late 70s. The Chinese took a while to get there, but when they did get there, they did it with such gusto and with such competence that it quickly became a huge issue.
Right.
Because they did it at a scale, everybody else was claiming maybe one, maybe two islands, and then the Chinese just sort of built 10, 15 airstrips. And that's it.
One of them is Woody Island,
right,
where they built it, I think, from completely from scratch.
Yes,
it's like a sandbank essentially, and they build this on it with an airstrip, and so on one level you can sort of see, well, it's their backyard in a way, right? America wouldn't have anyone else being involved in certain parts of the Atlantic seaboard, for example.
Yep.
So it's sort of it's China's sea in various ways. But from the point of view of the Pentagon, the State Department, the Chiefs of Staff, the President of the United States, all American foreign policy, they're not happy with it.
Yep.
Right? They're not happy with it. They see it as just straight up aggression.
Yep.
And so that's why they will send because there's international waters.
Yeah,
a lot of it still. So the South China Sea is a gigantic bit of the Pacific. I mean, so you can sort of sail aircraft carriers around and say, no, you can't get annoyed at us, China. We're allowed to sail here.
Yep.
But China hate it.
Yes.
They hate it when the West, like Germany sent some battleships through there very recently in the last few days, sort of thing. Or the Nimitz is sailing around the South China Sea. They don't like it. So tension is certainly rising, or has been slightly pitched up a little bit since recently. But what Hegseth said there, I think is really interesting, is that the Chinese military, in lots and lots of different ways, has been designed as if it's going to attack Taiwan.
Yes.
In lots and lots of different ways, and training for it. Because as I understand it, I've never been to Taiwan, but as I understand it, it would be quite a difficult place to say. It's quite mountainous. It's not easy terrain. It's not like southern France or Belgium or something. It would be quite a tough call. And the coastlines are not particularly easy. Oh, there's HMS Prince of Wales there. One. We're still going around pretending in the shadow of a much, much bigger bully.
Yes.
Poking our head round from behind him. Yeah, do as you're told.
What is that even supposed to be? It looks like it's
an aircraft carrier.
It's an aircraft carrier.
Well, that's an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that's our aircraft. That's our preeminent aircraft
isn't it?
carrier. That.
Yeah.
Well, it's more that the American ones are gigantic. Like the Nimitz is ridiculously big. But yeah, in comparison, it's a lot smaller, isn't it? Yeah, a lot smaller. No doubt about that.
And the sort of aircraft carrier expect the Belgians to have. It doesn't work.
They tried to send one of the two to help police the Red Sea,
right? And
they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't always work, shall we put it this way? It doesn't always work.
Right.
Which is slightly embarrassing.
Let's play this, but just without any audio. Just so there's some Chinese bombers and then an AWACS plane, right?
Yep.
That's an AWACS plane up the top there. And just like picture, that's Woody Island, I believe. So again, the Chinese are sort of showing little bit showing their hand. They know we'll have the Americans will have satellite imagery.
Yeah.
We'll put some big bombers out there. So, it's the game that's being played.
Quick question, if I may, to you for us. In the first segment, we were talking about how there's this balance between the Russians and the US on the amount of strategic capability they have.
Yeah.
Are China part of any of those?
Not yet. There has been talks about signing a treaty with China so that they also, the US, China, and Russia all manage their nuclear capabilities together with a view towards having visibility,
but until that happens, China's just can do what they want, really.
And they have a disadvantage in terms of number of nuclear weapons, but they are redesigning and upgrading those at a pace that is much faster than anyone else. So the Chinese nuclear capability is the only one that is growing extremely rapidly, but from a low base.
I see.
And it is going to end up becoming perhaps the most modern, or second only to Russia's, in terms of the most modern. So this is a very, very dangerous game that's being played here.
And the Chinese have got a very good, pretty damn good missile program. I mean, they send stuff to the moon all the time, no problem.
And they have a base on the dark side of the moon.
They've sent loads of stuff to the dark side of the moon.
They have a base on and nobody knows what it is that they're doing there, which seems to be an important detail. In terms of the weapons platforms that you can put there, you won't detect the launch, and you will only notice something coming your way through the atmosphere, not certain if it's just some meteor that you didn't pick up on or an actual nuclear weapon. So this is a bit of a game-changing thing that's happening on the moon.
But so just to say that the Chinese Navy and their actual army, all sorts of weapon systems are all geared towards if we might one day actually try and physically take Taiwan, we've got everything in our arsenal to do precisely that.
Well, there's an implication in that. If they're designing their military to fight for Taiwan, and Taiwan is defended by the US, they're basically saying we're designing our military to fight the US.
Which is also happening. If they're nowhere near there, I think they have 3 aircraft carriers, whereas the Americans have 11 nuclear and 8 non-nuclear. But the anti-ship missiles that they have are very impressive. Some argue that they can't actually hit a carrier with them. We've seen that if the Houthi can hit a ship with a drone, then the Chinese will hit some ships.
So that was one of the things I was going to say. If it came to a limited war between the United States and China, let's not assume they're just going to carpet nuke each other's cities. It's a limited war over Taiwan and naval engagements in the South China Sea. I still think the US would win, like fairly easily. The US Navy is a behemoth. It's unbelievably big. And powerful. So say one day we wake up and the Chinese have done this. They've used these sort of what are they, like barges that with big bridges on them that could just sail up to almost anywhere on the coast of Taiwan and start unloading tanks and armoured vehicles and thousands of men. We just wake up one morning and that's happening. And the Americans, I think of perhaps the British response to the Falklands. They take a couple of weeks or a month. They get the entire Pacific Fleet, or even more. They get like their Mediterranean or their Atlantic Fleet. They get together and they do a giant armada of most of the US Navy.
Then
the Chinese can't stop that, short of nuking it.
They'd start raining anti-ship missiles on these vessels.
But they've got defences for that.
They've got some defences for that, but the defences almost got exhausted fighting the Yemenis, or there was a serious problem with the Yemenis. That's one side of it. The other side of it, the other side of it is slightly more important. 50% of shipbuilding capability is today in China, and 0.0 something percent in the United States, with the rest being mainly in South Korea and Japan. So the only 3 countries that are building ships today are China, South Korea, and Japan at volume. India has some, Vietnam, US, etc. Italy and Germany produce a lot of luxury yachts. But the sort of regular run-of-the-mill shipbuilding, the Chinese have an enormously dominant position. And so if this becomes a long industrial war,
I was going to say.
the Chinese have big advantages. And the closer you push Russia to China, the more of a problem you have, because one of them is a natural resource superpower and the other is a manufacturing superpower. So the only sensible policy is to try to separate them somehow.
From the United States point of
From
view.
each other. From the United States point of view and from Britain's point of view, as also an aspiring maritime power.
So I'd say there's two things there. There's one, if there was just a window of a couple of weeks of whatever China's got versus whatever the United States has got in terms of military navies.
Right.
Okay, in those terms, I feel like America wins. If it's a much longer, protracted thing, then yeah, okay, so China has got a much bigger starting manufacturing base. But look what America did in World War II.
Yep.
They pumped out an insane navy
Yes.
in a year or two.
Yeah.
Insane. They could do that again if they really wanted to. I don't see any of this happening, by the way.
Yes.
But if it did, we're just talking hypothetically. If it did, if China went all out to build the biggest, baddest ass navy it could, and the United States did the same thing, I feel like the United States win again.
Right.
I don't know. But anyway, say this happened, because this is interesting, isn't it? That they're very, very clearly want to invade Taiwan.
Yes.
If one day the President and the State Department and the Pentagon said, we will not defend Taiwan, I feel like China would bounce across very quickly and take it.
I think what they would do first is a siege. It's a maritime siege.
Yeah.
So this image is fascinating because this is the various Chinese training exercises up to 2024.
This?
It's blatant, isn't it? It's so blatant.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wonder what their practice was.
Yeah, right.
And so across from each of those patches is a major Taiwanese port. And the most important one is the port of Taipei in the north. And so if you blockade that, you blockade a lot of the ability to import energy. And they have a decent oil reserve, but they don't have a decent gas reserve. And they've decided to shut down their nuclear. Because why wouldn't you when you're at risk of siege?
That's what everyone does these days.
Yeah.
You shut down our nuclear.
So this was the single most insane policy that convinced a bunch of people that the Taiwanese aren't willing to fight.
So why on earth didn't the Chinese do this when Biden was in? Because that was their opportunity.
Well, Biden just went along with... he was an establishment puppet.
Yeah.
And the establishment, or at least the sort of Pentagon, the State Department establishment, want to keep the status quo. So they're like, no, go over there and say what every president has always said. Like they sent... Kamala Harris did a visit, didn't she, to Taiwan? The CCP said, don't go over there. Don't do that. And she's like, I'm doing it anyway. I think Pelosi visited them. Maybe I'm thinking of Pelosi, actually.
Pelosi visited, yes.
So... It would if the Chinese again, we wake up one morning and the Chinese are invading Taiwan. It wouldn't just be the United States, as you say. Then it would be the Japanese would find it, and the South Koreans would find it difficult to not get involved.
Yes,
quite quickly on some level.
Yep.
And then just the geopolitical thing. The Russians, how and to what extent are they going to stick their oar in?
Yep.
It would become, if not like a World War II style. World War III, total war. If not that, it would be a giant conflict quite quickly,
Well,
wouldn't
the
it?
US have a major naval base in Manila, which is not far south of Taiwan.
Yeah, right. Well, the story of the Americans and the Philippines. How storied is that?
Yes.
MacArthur. I'll be back.
Yeah.
What did he say? I'll be back. What did he say? I will return, I think it was. But yeah, the Americans and the Philippines. Again, it's one of the American pillars of their foreign policy, of their sort of their entire world hegemon.
Yes.
Is that no one mucks with the Philippines on our watch. And whether they'll sort of if the Chinese did do this in 2027 or whenever, what would the Americans, if the Chinese called the Americans bluff, said no, we're taking Taiwan, look, we're doing it, it's happening, what would Trump and Rubio and Hegseth do? Do you think they would get together 8 aircraft carriers?
Would they kick off the war to defend Taiwan?
I don't know. It would be interesting. It would be interesting. It's maybe not
one way
really
to
the right way.
reindustrialize, yes.
So there's just the implications of this could be big. And I think Xi, not that I really know the mind of Xi Jinping, but he does sometimes still talk about the century of humiliation, the 19th century,
Yes.
where the rest of the powers in the world, United States, Russia, Britain.
It was mainly
France.
Britain doing the humiliation.
Yeah.
Everybody ended
The
up-
Opium Wars. Yeah, the Opium Wars.
Yeah.
Obviously they're that's long gone now, but still that they won't have anyone else in the world tell them their business.
Yes.
That if we want to take Taiwan, we're going to do it.
Yes.
That does seem to be his mind, sort of his headspace,
Yes.
where he is, and the fact that they consider it just sort of a renegade province sort of
Yes.
thing, don't they? That's what they consider it to be.
Mhm.
And things like this, and all those barges with bridges on them, landing, trying to perfect the art of beach landings and stuff. It is a bit ominous. Like what Hegseth said, my point is what Hegseth said there isn't pointless saber rattling from the United States.
No.
I don't think it's just sensationalism. I think there's a real thing there.
These kinds of training exercises, the idea is to say to Taiwan that we can choke you off, you're better off submitting peacefully. You're better off just accepting that you're part of China, whether you like it or not. The alternative is a war that puts you in the same position as Ukraine. Because the Taiwanese economy can't function if the Chinese wanted to stop functioning. And because the amount of damage that they can do in just terms of switching off the electricity, in terms of endless drone warfare, in terms of just constant bombardment and harassment, is going to be very...
The softly approach probably would have worked better if they had actually respected Hong Kong's autonomy more. So the Taiwanese know what's going to happen to them if they come along peacefully.
It's not like the Chinese are like invincible though.
No.
I mean, talk about drone strikes. What about a big drone on the Three Gorges Dam?
You can't bring down something as big as the Three Gorges Dam.
Well, you wouldn't think so, but
I mean, militarily, I think just think about the difficulty that the Allies had in terms of destroying dams in the Second World War. Yes, there's a solution to
the
it.
dam busters.
Yes.
Squadron 316, 617. Yeah, no, they was quite successful. They blew up a couple of dams, no problem.
But the size of that thing is so monumental that the number of attempts that you have to make against it is just insane.
The nature of dams, though, particularly that one, is that the pressures are so huge that you need only put a crack in it and the billions of tons of water do the rest for you. But anyway, talking about dam busting perhaps is for another day.
Yeah, right.
I would happily talk all about the physics of dam busting.
Fair enough.
In fact, I did a bit of content about that recently.
Okay.
And the superconductor thing. So, all right, there's just a bit of an update on Taiwan, and that it could be a flashpoint. In fact, at some point in the future, it probably will be a flashpoint, I would think. I hope to be proven wrong. I hope that last statement dates terribly.
Yeah.
I fear it won't.
We've been complaining about what appears to be the intentional degradation of our educational system for years now. If you went through the state school system in the UK, as I did, you will know exactly what I mean. Just listen to the man in the street interviews from the 1960s compared to those done now, and it is crystal clear that those people then have something that we don't have now. Put simply, we're being dumbed down by the powers that be on purpose, but we don't have to accept this perpetual lowering of standards. We are still a free people, and it's time to do something about it. This is why we have created courses.lotuseaters.com, a platform on which we are now offering courses which are tailor-made to reconstruct the education that has been denied to us. The first course we have available is Dr. Nima Parvini's Excellent Trivium, a tripartite course consisting of logic, grammar, and rhetoric, which is the foundation and backbone of a classical education. This course will make you a better writer, speaker, and thinker, and it used to be that every 12-year-old in the country would take it. Personally, I will be doing this course with my own children to ensure they get the benefits of it for their whole lives, but it's never too late to do it, and I really think you should. We will also be producing many other courses in the future on subjects which are not topics of idle interest, but which instead will level you up as a person and make you more effective in the real world. I want to be clear, these are not YouTube videos. They are university-level lectures and coursework with a test at the end, to which you will have to apply yourself. In these, we are not offering you an easy life. We are offering you the foundations of what you will need to be a part of the ascent of our civilization out of the hole that was dug for us. They are not easy, but they are rewarding. They are an investment in yourself that will provide you with skills that you will use for the rest of your life. Courses.lotuseaters.com. We will see you there.